Hi there, and welcome to Recruiting Masters, brought to you by the CFC Insider. We have Clint Uttley on the show today. Clint was a former youth sports head coach and is the National Recruiting Analyst and the head of the CFC Scouting Bureau, which develops the CFC100, CFC150, and CFC60 top player class rankings across Canada. Welcome to the show, Clint.
Thanks for having me, Katie. I've spent the entire week practicing all the different names we're going to cover off today.
And there are some doozies. That being said, we're going to be going over some frequently asked questions when a new edition of the CFC 100, CFC 150, or the CFC 60 is released. We just dropped a new edition this past Monday. We will be dropping another one this upcoming Monday, so we're going to go over a few things on how the movement of the list and how that all works. We're also going to be talking about the CFC 100 2021, the 23 newcomers that made their way onto the CFC 100 rankings list, as well as our recruiting tip of the day, which is what if I attend a camp or combine and perform poorly? How should you act, react, not act? So we're going to go over some quick tips on what you should do to get through that situation. So before we get started, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter @ChatFootball, Instagram CFC_football, and our YouTube for more exclusive content. So the CFC prospect game tryouts are coming up in March. The Scouting Bureau, myself, Clint, a few other coaches that we travel with across the country are going to be in Vancouver for the FPC, which will also be the BC participants tryout, as well as in Winnipeg on March 20th. The Vancouver tryout or BC tryout will be from March 14th to the 17th. Calgary will be Friday, March 22nd. Burlington will be on Monday, March 25th, and following up with the last one in Montreal on Wednesday, March 27th. So like I said, all of these, the exclusive content and pictures and photos and interviews and all of that great stuff is going to be on our Facebook, Twitter, @ChatFootball, Instagram, CFC_football, and YouTube. So you want to sign up for those and follow us there. You don't want to miss any of that great stuff. So Clint, we released the new CFC 100 2021 this past Monday. There's a lot of new faces on that list.
Yep, there is. And when we do renew, every year, kind of the beginning of our years is following the February signing day, because obviously that's the end of a recruiting period down in the States. So that's kind of the calendar point we picked. And it's also the point where the youth sports schools have been deep into recruiting for months. And you can kind of see them rounding out or shaping out their recruiting classes. So that's kind of where we roll it over. That's kind of where we kickstart it and kind of reevaluate the entire thing once again.
So you had we're going to be talking about the 2021 kids this episode. However, the 2020 list, which came out last week, the new edition, there was quite a swing there, and there still is some movement happening.
Yeah, there totally is some movement happening. We've talked to a number of prospects just because there was some moves both up. Mostly there was quite a few of them that moved just a couple spots down, and that's not too surprising, because there was on the 100 and now it's become a 150. There was 17 newcomers to the list. Those newcomers kind of pushed their way on the list, both through attending showcases and just the submission of their video and so on and so forth. So there was 17 newcomers, and then you have to add on top of 17, you have to add 12, because there was 12 underclassmen on our list. There was more than that actually, but there was 12 underclassmen who started to get significant offers. So for us, that would mean more than one. More than two. So they would move up to the top end of our list because of the interest they're getting, both from the fact that they've gotten one or two scholarship offers, but you also have to factor in that I know it's early for juniors in the U Sport system, but many of these are already getting heavily recruited by the U Sport schools too. So they push themselves way up the list. So we're already looking at 29 spots, and we haven't even factored in after each February signing day. There's probably, I would say, between 8 and 12 high level prospects from, say, example this year, the class of 2019, who immediately following that mid-September point, they reclassified. So there was 12 of them this year. So if you factor in the 17 with the 12 and the 12, I mean, I'm not.
And you had two that were on the 2021 that came up back up. So
yeah, that was like a first for us, where we saw two players who actually they went down and did the prep school thing for whatever reason. They came back, so they actually went from the class of 2021 and have now pushed back into the class of 2020. So one of them actually, we had a couple of coaches from the MAC who actually liked him. So hopefully they follow him all the way back home and give him his opportunity, even though he's going to be playing his high school football back home.
And those, just to clarify, when we say offers, we're more specifically talking about Division One, FBS, FCS offers. So we don't, we do recognize the D2 or D2 offers. We'll just say the D1 offers are the ones that really do make a difference on where you're ranked on the CFC 100 or 150.
Yeah, for us, a Division Two offer would be right on par with the U Sports offer. In most cases, a Division Three offer, if there even is one.
No, they can.
Yeah, they
take
don't
anybody.
even. It's non-financial, right? So I mean, it's not part of it. So I mean, yeah. So the offers are full offers, FBS, FCS. Are they always full? They might not be, but it's an offer. It's been pushed out through the school itself, so it's probably landed its way onto
247 Sports.
247, whatever, on our website. So I mean, that's what we mean by an offer. And then when a kid from Canada starts to pile up the U Sports, then that will become a factor as well.
So these players, they've now made it on the list. Most of them, or all of them, have been invited to the CFC Prospect Game tryouts in March. What if they do really well at these camps? What are or at this tryout? What are the chances that their ranking could significantly be impacted either way, up or down?
I think it's going to be in their benefit. So say you're a prospect and you're kind of hovering in that 50 to say 100 range, or 100 to 150 range, because you're just absolutely new to everybody. You know what? If you go to those tryouts and you push your way onto that final 60, which is going to be divided into two teams of 30, you're going to go up the list. There's just no other way for that to be explained other than you went and competed against what we felt were the top players in Canada. And at this point, I think we're pushing into the 80 to 85 range for the number of 100s, 150s, mostly 100s, who are going into these different tryouts. So, I mean, we only pushed out probably about 200 invitations, maybe a little bit more than that, but like we have like close to 80 plus CFC 100s who have already registered, and we're still like 2.5 weeks out. And there'll be a couple more. There will actually be more who will register over the next little bit, because myself, I'm going to engage them, because the whole point of the prospect game is we want to see the 100s compete against the 100s, or we want to see the prospects who have just generally just pushed their way onto the roster and said, yeah, you missed me, I am a 100, so now I'm here. So I mean, the whole point is that to get those best players playing against those best players. And I think it'll be a unique experience both for the players who are playing their high school football in Canada, and there will be a few who come back to play in the game from prep schools down south. I don't see how they would play against better competition down south other than they play against a Power 5 prospect, like an individual one-on-one matchup. I honestly think that this game will be just as competitive, if not more. And it's going to be a great gauge for us to look at the 100s and see, okay, where do you stack up and how do you stack up? And usually in these scenarios, the cream rises to the crop. And when the cream does rise to the top, it's going to get rewarded for all those efforts. And that reward will be moving their way up the list.
It's going to be exciting. I'm just really looking forward to these tryouts. It's going to be a chance for us to confirm a lot of these players and where they sit. And we just hope that they've all been prepping and preparing, and they're just going to bring their best on those tryout days. So let's get right into it. We're going into the CFC 100 2021. You can find these player class rankings on CanadaFootballChat.com under the rankings tab. So you can find all of the classes 2019, 2020, 2021, as well as the CFC 60, which is the CEGEP and junior college player class rankings. And that list is also going to be updated here fairly shortly. So Clint, let's take a look at some of these. We've got, I believe it was, what did we say, 23 that we're going to be talking about today. And let's just preface this start with, there are some incredible names of these players. So please, we apologize ahead of time. We're probably going to just brutalize some of these names. We'll do our best. But so the first one we got on the board here, out of Ottawa, athlete, 6'2", 190 pounds. He's a freakish athlete. We were talking about him. We believe he projects best as a linebacker at the next level. So this is Josiah Sowa. He goes to St. Joe's Football North. What's your take on Josiah?
Josiah was interesting because we throw on his highlight film, and not very often. The first thing that catches your eye is, like, he's 6'2" and 190 pounds. He's a young guy, so he's class of 2021. So, I mean, but the thing that really stuck out is on his highlight film, he had, like, DB, and usually most players will have 2 positions on their highlight, or 3 or 4, or some you get all crazy and put, like, 6. But, I mean, he had, like, defensive back / defensive lineman. And it's like...
What a combination.
Yeah, exactly. When you see stuff like that, you're like, what? So anyways, and we watched the film, and it wasn't too far off. Like, Josiah was, like, playing man coverage, playing a little bit of zone, you know?
Getting up on the line,
and then he was, like, a stand-up end, and then it was, like, then he was dropping back into coverage. So, I mean, Josiah, for me, is, I think he projects as a linebacker. We've already discussed that. He's one of the true 2003s, so the birthday 2003, that I would really like to see make their way through to the prospect game, which would potentially give him 2 years in the prospect game, because I think he's that kind of football player. I hope that this kind of situation allows him to kind of really flourish, push his way through the tryouts, push his way into the game, and really get his name out there for everybody in Canada and, you know, the United States to see kind of what type of athlete / football player he is.
So then we had Evan Clark, a quarterback out of Cardinal Newman in Hamilton. His film came in late. This kid is no doubt a baller, and he's pretty confident in himself.
Yeah, we received an email, and on the email it was like something along the lines that could make the tryout. And then it went on to say that, however, I think you should look at my film because I am the best grade 10 quarterback in all of Canada, period.
We like it.
Yeah, so it's like, that's like, he's basically said, I am the top sophomore quarterback in all of Canada, maybe the best quarterback. You should look at my film. So, I mean, part of me looked at that and was just kind of shrugged it off. And the other part of me was like, I'm so going to look at his film now.
Well, at 6'1", 190 pounds, grade 10, I mean, that's pretty good.
Yeah, he's already, like, he's put together. And I know that, and I hope I got the school right, it's Newman. I know they played some really tight games against STM this year. Maybe not at the beginning of the year, but I know they had 1 or 2 of them which were a little tighter. Let's just put it this way. They're probably the only team in that entire region or district that gave STM a bit of a go. Let's just sum it up that way.
Well, Catholic Central.
Yeah. So, I mean, but Evan made a bunch of ridiculous plays. Maybe not too much against STM. There might be 1 or 2. But he made some ridiculous plays. And when we were evaluating the quarterbacks for 2021, we got his name in late to the Scouting Bureau. Scouting Bureau took a quick look, though, and out of they had already discussed and ranked 10 quarterbacks, and we threw his name in late. And within a day, they had him into the quarterback rankings, and they had him ranked 3rd.
Reshuffled, yeah.
Yeah, so they reshuffled it, so recalibrated it. But yeah, so he went from nowhere, and then all of a sudden he was 3rd. We've now placed him on the list according to that. So he's now on the CFC 100. Don't tell anybody. And then, so that's him. I'm curious to see. I know he's actually one of the. I do believe he's coming to the Burlington tryout. So I'm quite curious to see him there. Hopefully he is, or plans to. If he hasn't, he should. Okay. So, but yeah, that's Evan. And then there's a bunch of other players too, but like we have to. There's like 23 of them, so we're gonna have to move through them pretty quick.
Next, we have an outstanding defensive lineman out of Brockville, 6'2", 235 pounds, Jaden Delorme. He's pretty solid against the run and the pass.
Yeah, Jaden's actually been to, I believe, a couple of FPC events. I'm not sure if he's at Football North St. Joe's yet. Maybe he's flirted with it a little bit, but I know I've watched him before. I've seen him playing some of the other CFC, FPC prospect game things. He's done really well in them. If you watch his film, he plays for. Jaden plays for, is it the Ottawa? I think it's the Sooners. Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's the Sooners, but it's the the younger level team. But I mean, Jaden's an impressive looking player for his age, and I like his motor. And you're right, he is a solid two-way defender, both against the run and pass. And
then, so here's our first one: L. James Agamudu, a defensive back, 6'2". Okay, so 6'2", defensive back. Let's just remember that. Yep. 187 pounds. This goes to Rice. With we think he's just scratching the surface. I think he's coming back from an injury.
Yes, L. James is rehabbing off a knee injury. But just to back up a little bit, L. James is one of about 5 defensive backs who are in the class of 2021, so that means they're 2 years away.
So that's grade 10.
So that's like in that grade 10, that sophomore range. He's one of like 5 defensive backs who are 6'2", and in that 185 to that 195 pound range. So we're talking they're probably going to turn into linebackers. But I'm telling you right now, they're actually 6'2" DBs who can cover quite well and run extremely well, and just have all kinds of potential, and we're going to cover a couple of them. But L. James will come back from his, he'll rehab it, and I see him being a solid player.
So another 6'2" defensive back out of Ajax, I believe he plays for the Durham Dolphins, Craig Gonsalves. I hope we said that right. So again, another big defender, a young kid.
Yep, he played mostly safety. He played in the back end, but he was mostly a safety. But like I said, if we go back up our list already in the top 5 prospects we've already spoke about today, if you actually kept Josiah in the back end or in the secondary, that's in the class of 2021. So we're talking sophomores. That's the 3rd new DB to the list who's over 6'2".
It's crazy. Defensive lineman heading back out west, Salisbury, in that Edmonton region in Alberta. Okay, so Ty Reichester, like I said, 6'2", 255. If I can say this, he plays football like he's in a bar fight. The kid is just looks like a tough player.
Okay, so let's put this into perspective. I'm just happy that Katie's introducing all these players, so I don't have to touch the names. Second part of this is Ty is only a sophomore, so he's never been in a bar. So we'll just clarify that.
Clarify that, yes.
Yes.
Nor do we know anything about bar fights.
No. Yeah. So, anyways, but Ty, if you watch his film, the way he plays the game, he's got that edge, kind of that like just. I'm ready to fight you. Let's go now. I'm going to kick your butt. And, oh yeah, by the way, we're actually playing football. So, I mean, that was the impression I got for Ty. I'm actually curious. I know he just registered for the Calgary tryout. So I'm excited to see him there. For those of you who are able to make it out to the Calgary event, I think we're over like 30 plus CFC100s just for that tryout. Yeah. So there's going to be some ridiculous offensive and defensive line play that's going to happen in Calgary on March 22nd. Not to mention we're going to have some of the better young receivers in Western Canada.
And the quarterback group is super strong.
And the 2020, I would say if we were to say the best quarterback class, if you were to say like collectively for 2020, they're out of Alberta. There's great individuals in all of the other provinces. There's great like upper class and lower classmen, so like seniors and juniors. But in terms of a group of three that I've run into so far in a province, I would say most definitely it's in Alberta. So, but anyways, back to we were talking about Ty. Ty looks like Ty. He looks like a lumberjack, or that's the impression I got when I was watching film. Look at he's a lumberjack bar fighter, and that's just me being a little rough around the edges. So, but anyways, he just looks like a tough kid, and he plays hard.
All right, well, we're going to move right along to Aaron Tung, who's an offensive lineman, 6'2", 280 pounds, in our neck of the woods out in BC. He's going to play at Centennial. Be coached up by Dino Jeremiah, who also has you coached with at UBC.
Yep, Dino just became the head coach at Centennial, and there's a couple other things going on there, but he's trying to kind of turn that thing around. They had a couple of thin years, but they've always seemed to have like one or two athletes at Centennial.
Yeah.
So, and Aaron's going to be one of those kind of key pieces that I'm sure Coach Jeremy is going to lean on to kind of get that rebuild going. So we saw Aaron a year ago. He looked like a young player. Weren't sure if he was like uber physical at that point, and we're kind of like, well, he looks like he could be a player, and he's got the size to be a player. And then we had a chance to watch Aaron's film over the last month, and he's like really come a long way. And we were really impressed with just how aggressive he was and tenacious. And I mean, there's a couple of clips on there where he's moving people downfield in a hurry, and his helmet's coming off, and he's still flying around.
Yeah,
and,
he's aggressive.
Oh yeah, it looked like at one point he was going to headbutt a kid without his helmet on, and it was just like, you know what, I would like to see him and Ty meet each other. Yeah. Anyways, but I was really impressed with Aaron's sophomore film, like really, really impressed.
And then we got David Shalombo, receiver, heading back into Quebec, 6'1", 200 pounds. If y'all didn't know, Shalombo means athletic in French. So we are really curious to see how he does, because I believe he's also coming to the Montreal Trail.
Yeah, he's registered. He's pushed his way onto on the list. But yeah, he's. I'm really curious because it says on his huddle link that he's 6'1", 200 pounds, but he looks bigger than that. And then I know that he comes from a family that's pushed out a couple of really good football players. And I know Katie was kind of tongue-in-cheek there where she said Shalombo means athletic in French.
It really doesn't.
It really doesn't, but for us it really does.
It does.
But we don't mean that in a disrespectful way. We're just giving compliments to the Shalombo family there. So, I mean, yeah, so we're excited to see David. Like we've said in the past weeks, there's some really, really good football players in that juvenile scene in the Montreal area, especially at Dableview. They have athletes year in and year out. Huron and Tabell, athletes year in and year out. Notre Dame Cactus coming back around. That's not even talking about the teams that are up in Quebec City where they have like 3 or 4 powerhouses in Jean-Eudes. And then Seminar Saint Francois, which has been like the dominant team in Quebec for the last number of years at the juvenile level. So, but anyways, back to Shalombo. We're super excited to see him in Montreal.
And then we've got the second coming of Maurice Jones-Drew, in our opinion, a running back, 5'9", 190, Fabrice Mukendi. I believe he's at St. Peter's in Ottawa.
Yeah, I mean, we got, I'm going to call him Fab for the sake of just what we're doing here. But yeah, we got his film and we're like, ooh, he's put together. And then we're like, oh, probably more of a downhill guy, can kind of stick the ball in there. And when you look at like sophomores and say the sophomore's 5'9", 190 pounds, that's what it said on his film, you're kind of like, wow, he's put together. And he's a sophomore, And then we put the film on and the, unbeknownst to us, the 5'9", 190 pounder had some serious wheels too. So you're kind of looking at the film and you're seeing this like little ball of muscle fly down the field.
Oh, he runs hard.
Yeah, so it was an impressive enough take that it caught our eye and pushed him onto the list.
And then we've got another player with a fantastic frame at 6'4", 240, a defensive lineman, Christophe Levesque from Collège Lévis. What are your thoughts on him?
Whenever I see those the sophomores, and they have that like 6'4" pushing 6'5" frame, or they're kind of pushing in that 240 to that 200 and say 75-pound range. That really catches our eye. We'll watch that, and we'll really watch that in depth and see exactly what's going on. Because I mean, in the scouting world, let's be honest, you can't teach size. You can teach strength and speed and fundamentals and all those other things. You cannot teach size. So when we see size, we give it extra attention. And in Christoph's case, that's very much the case. At 6'4", 240 pounds, and he's playing defensive end as a sophomore and playing a lot. So yeah.
And then we have there's a couple of athletes out on the island. Vancouver Island from Belmont, Sterling May, who's a defensive end, 6'4", 190, as well as his teammate Bo Palis, who's a receiver, 6'3", 170 pounds. We're kind of calling them the three amigos. There's a third one.
Steffer, the defense or the offensive lineman.
Okay,
yeah.
So there's three, but we're not just talking about the two today. So Sterling May, which is a great name, he's got some talent.
Yep. They have a couple of athletes for that Belmont JV team last year who really stuck out and really caught our eye. So I mean,
they went to the semis, did they not?
I think they went to the finals.
Did they go to the finals? Okay.
And lost to Kelowna.
Oh,
so,
that's right. Yeah.
And the only reason the other Belmont kid's not on here is he was already on the list. So these are the newcomers to the list. So I mean, there's even one or two others at Belmont who got some impressive size. So I mean. But yeah, these guys really stuck out. Obviously, they play multiple positions. We've categorized Sterling as a defensive end. Bo, we categorize him as a receiver, but these guys play multiple positions. Yeah. They got length and height and athleticism. So I mean, you know what? Every football coach knows if you got a sophomore and he's 6'4" and he's pushing in on 200 pounds, and he can run and he can catch, kind of the sky's the limit. So I mean, that's kind of what pushed these two onto the list. And on top of that, they played some really good football last year, and they hopefully they can all move up and kind of get Belmont's varsity team pointed in the right direction.
Another 6'3", 175-pound receiver, Okath Okello, out of St. Francis in Calgary. Another powerhouse. This is a big, tall, lanky receiver. He made some really nice plays on his tape, I thought.
Yeah, he does. He was one of those films where it catches your eye and you can see right away that he's every bit of 6'3", or so it looks on the film. Got a huge catch radius. Made some impressive plays. I don't know how much St. Francis threw the ball overall, but I mean, he did enough where it caught our eye. And then you just factor it with all the intangibles, which would be he is 6'3". He's already 175 pounds. He is a true sophomore. He goes to a winning program, and he has big playability. And then, yeah, we're in. Okath Okello is, we didn't notice him at the beginning of the year. We definitely noticed him at the end of the year.
So heading over to St. Francis' rival, Henry Wisewood. I'm a Calgary native, so I went to Ernest Manning. We kind of played a little bit about them when we were in that conference, but anyways, enough of that. So Ebenezer Badata, a defensive end, 6'3", 195 pounds. I kind of think Ebenezer is a bit of our sleeper for this week because we got his film and he was one of the better films we watched.
Yeah, Ebenezer, aside from having just a fantastic name.
Or last week we got.
Yeah. Yep. Aside from having a fantastic name, he's kind of gone. He's 6'4" now and he's 200 pounds. But anyways, Ebenezer, Henry Wisewood jetted him a lot and played him on the edge, and he made plays all over the place. So he's got a really tall, long frame that you could really pack weight onto. And the fact that he's 6'4" and he's 200 and he looks like he's super skinny. Sometimes players will look like they're filled out a bit when they're 200 pounds. He looks like he could pack it on. And if you watch the way, there's a clips on there where he'll dip and he'll run around the edge and you're just like, that's natural. And then all of a sudden, well, a lot of high school players, they'll kind of become one-trick ponies and run the same move over and over again. There's a couple of plays in there where he takes one or two hard steps upfield and then he just turns back in and he bull rushes. And at 6'4", 200 pounds, he was running people over. especially if it was a back. So I mean, I look at Ebenezer and I'm like, geez, I wonder if he could turn him into a linebacker. But if you can't do that, it doesn't really matter. You could turn him into an outstanding defensive end.
Yeah.
Either way, I would say Ebenezer Badada is probably going to be one of my sleepers as we make our way through the process over the next year and a half, 2 years.
And if I'm not mistaken, he either has confirmed that he's coming to the tryout or he is definitely talking about it.
He is, I think, yeah, Ebenezer at this point, the last discussion we had is he's going to be participating in the Calgary tryout for sure.
Awesome. That'll be exciting to see him come. Then we have a defensive back heading up north in Alberta to Red Deer, goes to Notre Dame. Guler Keongo, 5'10", 160 pounds. He plays the game a certain way. He's pretty savvy.
Yeah, he definitely is. It seems like he has a feel for the game, and he did a lot of little things that you wouldn't expect out of a sophomore. Just from the way he, would use his body and his hands and play a leverage and so on and so forth. And then I also liked how he wasn't afraid to come up and get into it. He really wasn't. So, I mean, he was kind of, as we were going through the corners and looking at corners, his film just kind of popped out because of all those little things. He does all those little things right. Or that's the impression the film gave us. So, I mean, yeah, hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right when I say it. Guler. But, I mean, yeah, Guler's film really impressed us.
And then we have Max Harris, an offensive lineman, 6'5", 275 pounds, goes to St. Mary's out of Pickering, Ontario. You gotta love those 6'5", 275 pound plus grade 10 linemen.
Oh yeah, when you see a grade, oh yeah, exactly. And just because we're sticking to the best list of football names in the history of football. Everybody needs to know if you huddle search Max Harris from Pickering, you got to huddle search Maximilian. And I'm not even joking.
It is Maximilian.
It's Maximilian Harris. So there's no way you're forgetting that. Anyways, but Max is a big, tall, long, young lineman.
Yeah.
So and those are the ones you're looking for. Because like we said earlier on in the podcast here, you cannot teach size and you cannot teach length. It's just a fact.
Heading back over to Edmonton, Harry Ainley, another powerhouse in the northern part of Alberta. Receiver Ethan Henderson, 6'2", 170 pounds. He was at the Edmonton showcase and really performed quite well. And actually, his performance, we definitely noticed him. And I would say that was one of the things that really helped him, get him ranked for sure. And then he wowed a few of the youth sport coaches there. Yeah,
he did. And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that, at Ainley, they run the ball a little bit, but they also had, like, Aju, who's lit the recruiting world on fire. And then they had Jackson Hume, who might have been the fastest kid in Western Canada. Mm-hmm. And he might have been behind them, so he probably didn't get as many touches. But he is legitimately at 6'2". Yeah. He's a legit receiver prospect.
For sure.
When we were finished the competitive period, the coaches were raving about him. One of the coaches who actually oversaw the receiver DB portion of that one-on-one competitive period was literally raving about him. He was like, I really like that kid. And I thought he was talking about somebody else. And then I was like, who? And then at the end of each of these showcases and tryouts, we actually ranked the top kids. So we can kind of put it on paper right away. So when we get back into the office, it's like it's down and we can figure it out. He was one of the top performers, definitely at the Edmonton. And I realized the numbers weren't big at Edmonton, but what we didn't have in numbers, we definitely had in talent.
And we weren't looking for that. We just wanted the best kids.
We wanted the best kids. And like say the 30, 35 we had there was like 20 CFC 100s. So I mean, so he did extremely well. He did so well that he pushed himself onto the list, and he's even got an invite for the prospect game a year early.
And then we've got Cherokee Robinson, another receiver, 5'11", 180 pounds, heading all the way out to the East Coast in Halifax at Citadel, probably the powerhouse out there in Nova Scotia. We're gonna go out on a limb here and say that we think he's probably gonna be the best skill player in the Maritimes for 2021. What do you think about that?
Yeah, first class of 2021. I mean, Cherokee. If you watch his film, he just looked like better than everybody else. Maybe I won't use the word better. He just looked faster and quicker.
Crisp.
Yeah, crisp. And you got to understand that he plays at the Citadel, which is the powerhouse in Nova Scotia. So there's probably a lot of seniors, and they probably know what they're doing. So the fact that he was a younger guy and he was making all those plays and was looking really good doing it, and then once again, let's get back to this is the best name list ever. Cherokee Robinson.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's like the guy who get drafted in the NFL. That's like Greedy Williams. Like we have two like Maximilian Harris. Are you kidding me? Cherokee Robinson, Ebenezer Badada. Like it's awesome. These kids, not just do they have awesome names, they're actually
awesome.
They have such a high ceiling, and they're awesome football players.
So now we've got Theo Karahalios, receiver, 5'11". Sorry, Theo, we're trying our best here. 5'11", 155 pounds. He's out of Manitoba, Winnipeg. Goes to St. Paul's. He's another outstanding player.
Yeah, you know what? Theo is a younger guy. He maybe is developing, and you know what? The way that things work at St. Paul's, he's probably not going to be the feature guy till he is a senior. But he did enough on film, and he did enough in a couple other areas that caught our eye. So I mean, the thing that you can always count on are the St. Paul's kids is they're gonna know the game. They're probably gonna be in great shape, and they've been part of a culture. And for me, when you maybe not so much now in my current role, but when I was a youth sports head coach, when we evaluated prospects, the culture part, I mean, I probably learned a few things over the years, and I could have prioritized it higher, but the culture part is huge.
It makes a difference.
It makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I saw a quote recently from a coach, a pretty prominent high school coach in the state of Washington, and he was like, I don't fear the other team's athletes or even their X's and their O's. I fear their culture. So, I mean, that says it all. But Theo's just another one of those St. Paul's kids. I bet you when we go out, if he's at the prospect tryout, which I believe he got an invite, he's just going to be another hardworking kid who's in really good shape and competes like heck.
And then we've got Amadou Wayne, a defensive back out of Curie Anton Labelle in Quebec. He has pretty solid film, and I really liked how he attacked the ball in the air. And but he's not overly big, but geez, he comes downhill fast.
Oh yeah, I mean Amadou, he made a couple of picks that looked simple, almost looked like fair catches, but he also made a couple of picks where he was just in the right position and high pointed the ball. Now the quarterback play could have probably been a little bit better, but he was in the right spot and he high pointed the ball. That's all you need to know. The other thing that impressed me about him is he was actually fitting into the run play from depth. So he was playing either in like a 3 high or a 2 high look as far as the safety goes. And he was coming down in the alley and he was actually sticking his nose in there. And if you watch his film, he's got 5'10", 180. He may very well be 5'10". I don't think he's 180. But I mean, he was coming downhill and he was sticking his nose in there. And he was also demonstrating that he can make that same kind of physical tackle in space.
And then we've got Kieran Mahari Bradshaw, a defensive tackle, 6 foot, 300 pounds, out of West Toronto Prep. I believe this kid's going to be a solid nose tackle prospect myself. Yeah, I don't really know, 6 feet, 300 pounds, but you said on an earlier show, at nose tackle, the height isn't as much as something that you look at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for those type of players, depending on how you're going to use your nose, is he going to be like, is he going to just sit in the A gap and basically hold up a guard in the center and not get moved? Or is he going to be a one gap penetrating tackle that you kind of tilt in an under front, and threaten that B gap and let that guy go kind of crazy? So, I watched his film. His film was enough to impress us. He obviously, not taking a shot at him, should probably get in better shape. But at the same time, he put out a clip the other day where he actually was benching 225 for the first time. So congrats to the kid. But yeah, I think he'll be really good. There's a couple of those 6 footers, those 6 foot, 290, 300 pounders. And I know that those aren't the perfect cookie cutter numbers. But you know what?
He's a good player.
He's a good player, and as everybody knows, at every level, you're always looking for linemen. You just are. Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah. So he did enough that it jumped out at us, and the fact that he had some pretty good movement skills, and he's a 6 footer and 300 pounds. Sure, let's go. And the fact he just put up 225, good for you. Got to remember he's a sophomore.
Yeah. Then we've got Giordano Vaccaro, another offensive lineman, 6'2", 265 out of Winnipeg, St. Paul's. I believe that I believe he's coming to the trial, or if he does, we hope he does. If he performs really well, he's going to shoot up the list.
He is coming to the tryout, so I mean, there's a couple of the high-end players who are confirming if they're coming, but that's going to be also a really good tryout.
That Winnipeg tryout is going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be great. There's a couple kids coming down, a couple, not a lot, but there's a couple of kids coming down from the Regina area who've played, at a higher level. They're coming down to that tryout as well, so we're looking forward to them coming. But Giordano is going to be there. And I'm really curious to see how Giordano does. If you watch his film, if you like offensive linemen who angrily grab people and slam them to the ground and then let them know that they just dominated them and broke their spirit and touched their soul, okay, Giordano is one of those. Giordano is basically the other guy in the bar fight who's putting everybody down. I'm just joking. I saw that in a movie this week, so I've made fun of that. Hopefully that doesn't offend anybody. But Giordano is definitely a road grading, put you on the ground, let you know about it. I don't know if he lets you know about it. I'm just going off his demeanor and his body language when he's playing football. And I would say he gets into you and he gets under you and he puts you on the ground, and then he might very well let you know that he just put you on the ground.
And then the last but not least, we've got the quarterback, Jackson Harnett, 6 foot, 180 pounds, from Harry Ainley. He's a okay runner. He has pretty good ball placement, but I think he needs to mature. Yeah,
he'll need a little bit of time, but I would put him in there. There's kind of that group of 2 to 4 quarterbacks in each region, it seems, in Alberta. So there's the solid grade 11s and 10s from the Edmonton area. And then you move up to Calgary, and there's a solid group, and then there's also the solid group of seniors. So, I mean, I would say Jackson's in that younger group. He's gonna have his work cut out for him. I mean, he's probably gonna watch, or his junior year is going to basically include watching Eli. Throw the ball all over the field and possibly go undefeated and win a provincial title.
But a good mentor, what a great person to back up, right?
But don't kid yourself, though. Jackson has a fair amount of upside. And you know what? When you play for those uber competitive programs, and when you actually play for a team that has, 45, 50 players on the team, there's going to be situations where you're going to find high school teams, and I'll use CJIP as the example right now, where you're going to find kids who are second teamers who would easily start at every other school in their conference and or their division.
Yeah.
So, I mean, Jackson's a young guy coming up, but he could probably start at most of the other schools that Harry Ainley plays against. Yeah. With the exception of maybe their competitor, Salisbury. So, I mean, maybe even, but so, I mean, don't kid yourself. I think he's worth getting on as a prospect as well, getting onto him as a recruiter.
Just to watch
even a year early, I mean, why not? Because, let's be honest, Eli's a pretty good quarterback.
Pretty good.
Yeah, Eli's a good quarterback.
We say that with...
tongue in cheek.
Tongue in cheek.
Yeah. Eli will be right in there in the mix. I mean, I bet you Eli probably hasn't lost more than 3 games his entire high school career. And I don't know what his stat line would be, but I bet you it's ridiculous. And as much as he has some really good athletes to throw to, he probably puts those athletes in really good positions.
Yeah.
But this is about Jackson and not about Eli. So, I mean, back to what I said. When you go on those super uber competitive teams in Alberta, there's going to be kids who have to wait their turn, but it's worth staying on them because of when it becomes their turn, they're probably going to be just as good.
So that's the 23 newcomers. We hope we kind of blasted through them. There's a lot more that we could go on about, but you can find the CFC 100, which again, or the CFC 150, which is the top high school prospects in Canada, and the CFC 60, the top CEGEP and junior college prospects player class rankings under the rankings tab on CanadaFootballChat.com. So we're going to quickly wrap up here with the recruiting tip. What if I attend a camp or combine and perform poorly? So there's a few things. I think a lot of it's just common sense, but you would be surprised at a lot of players haven't been. They don't know how to process their poor performance and how you can actually turn that into a positive experience. So with these combines and tryouts and the camp season coming up, hopefully everyone does really well and you're all training and hard and getting ready for these showcases and camps. But there is the chance that you are not going to perform well, and some of you have a really good chance. So how should you take that, Clint? How should you take not doing very well? Maybe you get stage fright or something happens, or you just you lose it in front of all of these recruiters and scouts and other people who are running the combine. How should these young players process the fact that they may not have performed as well as they would have liked, and just turn this into a learning or a teachable moment and to get better for the next one?
Well, I mean, probably the first bit of advice I can give you is don't, right? And then
be prepared.
Be prepared.
Come prepared.
Completely prepared. Yeah, I mean, the biggest thing for me and going back to my days as a youth sports head coach, there was plenty of times where we would go to an actual, say it's a spring camp, and you watch people actually play football, and you would watch an offensive lineman get absolutely destroyed in one-on-ones. Would it change your perspective a bit? Yeah, it would. But right at that point, my thought process wasn't about how he was getting his butt handed to him. It was about how is he responding to this happening to him.
How is he handling
right?
it? Yeah.
So, like, say I'm watching a player show up at a combine. He runs a laser time, which he hasn't run. He's only run hand time. And it was his high school coaches who were hand timing him. So he's running 4.6. And then he goes to the CFC showcase and runs a 5.05. Okay, so at that point, I was expecting that he was hand time, and now he's laser time, so it's going to go up a bit. But now I'm looking at his body language, his demeanor. Did his head sink down into his chest? Was he actually making excuses when he passed the finish line? Was he chirping back at the coaches at the finish line? Handle it with kind of a certain level of class and dignity. And you know what? I'm going to tell you right now, as soon as you run that bad time or you perform poorly in that drill, if you don't think the coaches were paying attention before that, they're paying attention now. And now it's even more important than the actual 40 itself or the individual rep, that you handle it in a way that shows that you're mature and that you're willing to learn. And if you handle it that way and you demonstrate that you're mature and willing to learn and you're mentally resilient, it's going to pay off dividends in the long run.
Because this can be like a bit of a snapshot as to
their
character, well, and how they could do in a game situation where they're losing or they've lost, and how they perform in something like this, which is just a snippet to translate to during season. You want somebody who's going to be, like you said, mentally resilient.
Yep. Oh, for sure. I mean, and I've seen players, all conference players, all Canadian players. There's a player on the current list who we coached in a game, and I'm not going to say he's at my school or not at my school, but coached in a game, and that player got beat quite badly on 2 or 3 consecutive drives, not plays. And he dealt with it where he kind of was negative, but then he rallied. So, I wish he had rallied right from the beginning, because that stuff demonstrates your character. It truly does. You know what? All adversity is opportunity. And if you demonstrate to a coach that you're mentally resilient and you're willing to learn, that'll win you just as many points as the 4.740. I'm telling you right now, that's just how it is. Outside of but let's be realistic. And the other part of this is, say you go to a massive combine, whatever it is, and it is go time, and you're only going to have 2 shots at this. well, I'm going to be very honest with you, don't miss the opportunity.
Yeah, because if you don't do well, they're not going to look twice.
No.
Not at those. Just quickly, if they do really bad, would this be a good time to maybe, of course, after when the coaches aren't occupied, to maybe go up to one of them and ask for feedback, or ask them how they could get better, or what, or maybe if they notice something like what they did wrong, or would that be a good time to do that?
I would say it's okay to do so, because usually if it's a super high profile prospect like myself or the other coaches that are in our traveling party, they'll be observing quite closely, and they might be able to give some immediate feedback. But that's also why when it comes to the bigger tryouts for us or the showcases, we videotape it so we can give detailed feedback. Last year we had an issue where there was one of the prospects, his 40 time was way off, and you know what, the father requested some feedback, and we actually spliced the film and sent him the film, and he saw right away that the start was so far off that it caused his son to have the bad start. So I mean, yeah, don't be afraid to ask for feedback, both maybe not in the moment, like give it a few minutes and catch your breath and get a drink of water,
of course,
slow your heart rate down, and then come back and say, Coach, man, you know what, I stunk it out on that one, what did you see?
But don't use that as an time to blow excuses.
No, don't use an excuse. Say, hey, coach, man, I ran a bad time.
Yeah.
What'd you see? And then that coach, if he came there and he's interested in you, he's still going to be interested in you. He'll probably look at you and he'll give you some feedback. And at that point, you're like, good, man, appreciate it. Thanks a lot. And then just move on. But don't stand there and be like, well, the grass was slippery. My shoes weren't tight. I got a blister on my toe. The laser went off early. Like, really?
The timers don't know how to
the timers didn't do the time right, even though it was a laser time. So, I mean, just turn it into a learning experience and then move on.
So that's really good advice. And like I said, with the camp season coming up and we are in it, just take these tips and really use them to your advantage. So you can find this tip and all other recruiting tips of the day on CanadaFootballChat.com. Our CFC Insider members love getting these tips and a lot more great content. That's it for us. Thanks, Clint, for joining us on the show today.
Thanks for having me.
Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Twitter @ChatFootball, Instagram CFC_football, and YouTube. And don't forget to purchase your exclusive CFC Insider membership today for access to rankings, analysis, and daily football recruiting news across Canada. This has been the Recruiting Masters, brought to you by the CFC Insider. Have a great week, everyone.